Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's Q&A. So, obviously, I have to start by telling what the heck happened last week. I'll just tell the whole story so it makes a little more sense. So, everything that I've done up until this point has been mostly 1080p 60. My computer works fine for that. Everything around 1080p 60 is cool. And even Premiere generally works pretty good in that setting. It doesn't crash any more or less than I guess everybody's setup. But whenever I hit 4K, everything went bonkers. And even up to this point, whenever I was editing 4K video, I almost had to do it blind because you couldn't play it in the Premiere timeline, and I couldn't even play back 4K files. So at this point, I just figured I would get everything done, get it up to YouTube, and watch it then, as I have to do with all of my 4K main videos. All those ones that you've seen, I don't actually get to watch them in real time until they're up on YouTube. At least a draft of it is. So I tested with the Cam Link. I tested with the setup in 1080p 60. Everything was fine. When I switched over, I did a quick test recording in 4K, and it played back choppy. So I thought it was weird because I did just upgrade to a 1070 video card, which isn't the best, but it should easily play back 4K video. But I was so used to everything not working in 4K that I assumed it was my video playback. And in hindsight, I should have uploaded that one little 30-second clip to YouTube and tested it there, and that was my huge mistake. But it turns out that after getting it all recorded, after getting it edited, all 4K is still going to look choppy for me in for the Premiere editing window. When I got it up and it still looked like that, I was pretty mortified, and I went back and found out that as soon as you switch over in OBS to recording in 4K, everything gets crazy. And in fact, anytime you switch from 1080 60 to 4K, even 4K 24, everything is doubled. The resources that your computer use, everything. So I'll put a screenshot up, but I found out that because I got this newer video card, I'm able to use hardware rendering. So it dropped the CPU usage when recording 4K 60 from 100% spiked to it says 5% now. So that was the issue. It was the fact that the Cam Link is a cheap device that's just meant to take, compressed 4K 24 and send it to your PC, and really is requiring your PC to do all the work. Whereas other capture cards have processing on it to help offload that from the PC. So that was the issue. Once I switched over to hardware recording, as you can see now, everything seems to be lining up fine. Sorry. And so I guess that was the only issue. So now everything seems to be working. I can play back these files on my PC, and it seems clear. The timeline in Premiere is still always messed up, but I just, I wanted to apologize, but also explain why, because I think a lot of people that might follow the channel do video editing and stuff themselves, whether for fun or professionally. But yeah, that was the thing. When moving up to 4K, I either needed to record with a much faster CPU or get a better GPU, as I did, and offload the processing to that. So I felt like such a dope. I really hope everybody got a laugh out of that, and it's totally cool if you're laughing at me and not with me. I just, after making a big deal about never rushing through these and taking my time because I enjoy doing them, and then to have that bonehead move. And I didn't want to re-record it, by the way, too. So when I saw it up on YouTube and I saw how choppy it was, I went, oh, crap. But even though I could have taken it down and re-recorded it, I really like how all of these are off the cuff. I don't read any of the questions until the camera's on. So while it doesn't always flow the smoothest, it's a real reaction and it's a real response from me. It's not like a rehearsed written response. And I like that interaction. So I just thought it was best, since these things could really be done audio only anyway, I thought it was best to leave it up, explain it this week, and go from there. So sorry for all that crap, and hope it doesn't bother anybody that much, but let's jump into this week's Q&As. First up, Joel said the audio's good, and the audio is his primary concern. And you know what? I think for most people, just listening to both this and the weekly podcast is how they prefer to do it. Even people that listen on YouTube, it seems to be one of those things where people kind of only look over if it's something they're really interested in, but let it play out anyway, just to hear the whole thing. And I think that's awesome. I like that. I like that I get to be I don't want to say background noise, but you could listen and really only perk up if something really interests you. But it's cool that people still listen to the whole thing to kind of get the whole feel for what's been going on and discover new things. So, yeah, audio is always the main focus, but I really do try to get video good in these as well. So I'll keep trying. And also, thank you. Said he loved the Virtual Boy stream. So, yeah, me too. Firebrand X was nice enough to chime in and fill us in on the questions about the SSDS3 audio noise. And it was kind of what I suspected, in that the problems were really now traced down to board revisions of certain PC engines. So it seems that the Super Graphics is pretty much perfect. If you do the jailbar fix and you connect the SSDS3, it's a total perfect experience in most cases. In fact, I can't think of a case that I remember where anybody had any issues. Where Firebrand X said the original white PC engine tends to pick up a lot of noise. So that's kind of what I suspected on this, and it stinks. And it certainly double stinks that you have to recommend a $500 rare console as the go-to. But hopefully people will find more consistent revisions. I like the look of the core graphics too, that color plastic. So who knows? The one I had ended up dying for a few different reasons. One may have been my fault too, but I'll get back to testing and see. So I guess the good news is, though, if you're going for the ultimate experience, the Super Graphics, the most expensive one, does do well. Also, it seems that that a lot of the SD access noise is from the power rails, so it really might not be something that's able to be fixed at all. I guess Terra Onion hired a few electrical engineers to work on this to try to improve it for future designs. But once again, to be honest, it's my personal opinion that if you're only hearing noise when accessing the SD card, I mean, that's easily forgivable in my opinion, and probably less noisy than a CD-ROM drive spinning up, especially if you have a rackety old tray or something. So thanks for the update. Really appreciate it. The Go also replied about his GCHD Mark II with the BVM D32. So this was the weird issue last week where he plugged it in and he was getting a distorted picture, but the D32 is a multi-format monitor, so I couldn't understand what the problem was. And he said disabling the line doubling option cleared up the distorted picture. So I guess that's just good practice. Let's just say, turn off the line doubling and let the D32 or any multi-format BVM just handle the signal that's sent to it. But that's really confusing to me because line doubling should only just send maybe like a 240p signal to 480p or something like that. So I'm not sure why that caused the issue. And in fact, maybe it's the same type of issue as stuff like the Dreamcast sync combining. But I'm glad you mentioned that. I was going to ask to check that, but I just wouldn't have thought that line doubling on something that could handle 480p would have been an issue. He said the real trick turned out to be finding an IR remote control that worked with the GCHD. So this is something that we discussed on the Retro Roundtable, and what's better practice? If you're not shipping a remote with this, do you ship it with line doubling on so that you guarantee compatibility with any HDMI monitor? Or do you ship it with line doubling off, guaranteeing compatibility with any RGB monitor? Because each output is mimicked, so it's not like HDMI could be 480p and RGB could be 480i. You have to set them identically. So obviously they chose to ship it with 480p. But that stinks because I know a lot of people that were in a situation where they had a 15 kilohertz monitor. They bought this thing and they said, I don't need a remote, whatever, I'll figure it out later. And it wouldn't work because it defaulted to 480p. And Everett said, why do you need a remote? Can't you just activate the OSD by holding LR, X, and Y? So with any of the GC Video plug-and-play solutions, it doesn't tap the controller commands because that's something that you need to solder directly to the board on the inside. So for any of the external solutions, you definitely need some kind of remote control. Clint Collage has a pretty good question. Do you have any concerns that with the growing list of arcade cores supported on MiSTer, that it could cause Capcom or some other brand that is working on releasing arcade collections or something similar to issue takedown notices that could affect the project as a whole? So there's actually two sides of this, because remember, in the U.S., anybody could sue anybody for any reason. It's just whether you'll win or not. And that's a tactic that a lot of these companies use, a lot of bigger companies, in that they know they have no basis in their lawsuit and they know they're not going to win, but they also know that they've already budgeted X amount of dollars a year for legal fees, and your average team of people or person certainly has not. So, do I think anyone will ever win? No, absolutely not, because you're taking a D10 Nano, which is an off-the-shelf product, and they're not going to fight Intel, who sells that. And now you're taking software where you're not including the ROMs with these cores. The cores are just reverse engineered hardware that's all very old. So none of that is illegal. Technically, you could try to say ROM distribution might be, but then they're going after the individual people that may or may not be selling pre-configured versions of the Mister. So from an actual winning standpoint, I would think that there's near zero worry about any of this stuff, at least today. I mean, who knows what's going to change in the future, but I personally wouldn't worry about that. But I wouldn't be surprised if somebody like Capcom, especially if, like, for example, what if the CPS-1 would hit Mister before that Capcom ugly-ass arcade stick? I could absolutely see them trying to shake things up. However, if anybody at that company had half a brain, you could see, like, around a boardroom, somebody saying, well, let's send the legal dogs after them to scare them off. If there's any nerds at that table, they're going to stand up and go, wait a minute. If you do that, you're going to give this entire group of people who are doing it way better than we are all of this promotion, and you'll probably lose a lot of sales from anybody who's willing to be part of the do-it-yourself crowd. So overall, you used the Capcom example. I'd say we're totally fine with Capcom. Who knows what other companies you might have to worry about in the future. Just overall, I think the Mister platform, the way it's set up, is one of the safest to contribute to. Because much like Raspberry Pi stuff, if they really wanted to come after people, they would have to come after people selling, which is the hardware manufacturers, and they're not going to go after the Raspberry Pi Foundation. They're not going to go after Intel. So yeah, just be safe though. If you're working on cores, don't distribute them with the ROMs. Don't use any intellectual property like Capcom logos or anything. But yeah, that's just my opinion and my 2 cents on all that. And Retro Tinker wanted to chime in once again about the Genesis audio noise. He said the problem doesn't start until after the TMSS screen. It starts as soon as you see the Sega logo. So this is really tricky because you're talking about 2 Genesis consoles and an audio problem that's happening with both, even with an audio bypass and a cap replacement done. So, that maybe if you could possibly post pictures or something, even if you can't do it through Patreon, maybe slap some on Imgur and link to it. But I'm really curious to try to figure out this problem. And no offense or anything, but if you'd said it was a problem on one console, I would say they're just toss the console and get another one. But the fact that you have the same issue across 2, I'm wondering what that common denominator is. So if you have any pictures of the installs or anything like that, maybe it's something that somebody like myself or especially Firebrand X could look at and just go, oh yeah, it's that. Move the wire over here and try something like that. So that's a weird one, but please continue to post because we're still working on the second version of the triple bypass. And while performance-wise it'll be pretty much similar, we're looking to address anything that we can just to help avoid stuff like this. Even if it's just installation notes, like run the wires this way or something. So thanks for keeping us in the loop and good luck with the Genesis. Well, not too many questions this week, but still fun as always. I don't care if there's 2 questions or 20 or 30, I'll try to get to all of them every week. And a note to anybody who's new to these Q&As, if you have any questions at all, please just post in the latest post for the Q&As in wherever you subscribe. So whether it's YouTube, Subscribestar, Bitbacker, Patreon, just find the newest Q&A and post your question there, because I can't really go back and search through the rest of them. It just doesn't really work the way I set these things up. And also, these are really focused on the supporter experience. So I always turn the comments off on YouTube because while I do make it public about a month after they go live, this really is just focused on trying my best to give back to everybody that supports the channel and the website and all that stuff. So no disrespect to everybody else. It's just I make it live as a courtesy and try to focus on all of us for these. So as always, thank you so much. I hope the video and audio was good this week, and I'll see you next time.